The bolt cutters snapped shut. And the house went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The oxygen concentrator in my grandfather's bedroom stopped mid-hum. The steady mechanical rhythm that kept his lungs working disappeared like someone muted reality. The red backup battery light blinked on. 18 minutes remaining. I shoved past Karen Peton at the utility shed. Are you insane? She didn't flinch. She adjusted her blazer sleeve like she'd just finished pruning roses. You were notified, she said evenly. Emergency Hazard Authority. The board voted. My grandfather is on oxygen. This is a residential neighborhood, she replied. Not a medical facility. Behind me, through the open bedroom window, I heard it. A thin, desperate inhale. Not enough air. I ran inside. Grandpa Ezra lay propped up against two pillows, the cannula still hooked beneath his nose, but the machine beside him was dark except for the flashing battery indicator. 17 minutes. His chest rose shallowly. His fingers gripped the bedsheet. Marcus, he whispered. I'm here. I switched the backup tank valve manually. The portable reserve kicked in with a weak hiss. Temporary. Not stable. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. Power cut. Oxygen-dependent patient. Veteran. Immediate dispatch. Outside, neighbors were starting to gather. Porch lights flicked on one by one. Through the window I saw Karen explaining something with calm, controlled gestures. Like this was a scheduling issue. Not attempted manslaughter. I stepped back outside. You cut a live residential line, I said, my voice steady now. Too steady. The board determined your equipment was overloading community infrastructure. That's a lie. She tilted her head. Prove it. The mistake she made wasn't cutting the wire. The mistake she made was assuming I didn't prepare for this. For 6 months, she'd been escalating fines. Landscaping violations. Commercial vehicle complaints. Medical waste citations. Every week, another notice. Every week, another attempt to make us leave. But I'm an electrical contractor. Former Air Force systems technician. I don't install power blindly. When she first started targeting the oxygen equipment, I installed monitoring. Voltage loggers on the panel. Load balance recorders. Cloud-back surveillance on the utility shed. If anyone touched the line, I'd know. And I'd have proof. Sirens echoed down the street. The ambulance arrived first. Paramedics rushed inside. I followed. Pulse ox 82, one of them muttered. We're moving. They stabilized him on a portable oxygen rig and loaded him onto a stretcher. As they rolled him out, Ezra caught my wrist. Don't let her win, he breathed. I nodded once. Outside, red and blue lights painted the houses in sharp pulses. The police officer walked toward Karen. Ma'am, did you authorize cutting this residence's electrical feed? Yes, she said confidently. HOA Emergency Clause 14C. The officer looked at me. Sir. I held up my phone. Time-stamped footage. 1:58 a.m. She uses bolt cutters on an active line. No city utility presence. No licensed technician. Karen's composure flickered. It was necessary to prevent fire risk. I opened another app. Load data from the last 30 days. No overload spikes. No irregular draw. The concentrator runs at 350 watts. Less than a microwave. The officer's expression hardened. You understand cutting live power without utility authorization can qualify as criminal tampering? Karen swallowed. I was protecting property values. The words hung in the air like poison. Property values. Against a war veteran's oxygen. The ambulance doors shut. They drove off. And for the first time, Karen looked uncertain. But this wasn't over. Not even close. Because while the police were discussing liability, I was already thinking 3 steps ahead. You see, oxygen machines fall under federal disability protection. Intentional interference. That falls under something much bigger than HOA bylaws. I didn't argue with her again that night. I didn't shout. I simply reconnected temporary power under police supervision and watched her walk back to her house. Still convinced she'd acted within her rights. She had no idea what morning would bring. And neither did the rest of Willowbrook Heights. By 9 a.m., the street looked normal again. Sunlight. Birds. Sprinklers running. Like someone hadn't tried to suffocate a veteran 8 hours earlier. I drove straight from the hospital to my office. Not to work. To file. First call, the utility company's legal department. Second call, a veterans' rights attorney I'd met years ago. Third call, the regional office that handles Fair Housing Act disability enforcement. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't dramatize. I emailed them everything. Video of the cut. Voltage logs. Copies of escalating HOA fines targeting medical equipment. By noon, I got my first response. The utility company confirmed what I already knew. The HOA had zero authority to disconnect power. No emergency request had been filed. No inspection had been scheduled. Which meant Karen acted independently. And illegally. At 2 p.m., 2 white city trucks rolled into our neighborhood. Not ambulances this time. Investigators. They inspected the severed line. Documented the unauthorized tampering. Photographed the tool marks. Karen came outside again, but her tone had shifted. There must be some misunderstanding. There isn't, one investigator said flatly. Then came the question that changed everything. Did you know this resident is medically protected under federal disability accommodation law? Silence. Because she hadn't checked. She hadn't cared. She'd been so focused on pushing us out that she ignored the one line you never cross. By evening, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. This time, attendance tripled. Neighbors weren't quiet anymore. Mrs. Patterson stood first. I'm a retired nurse. That machine is standard care. Mr. Kowalski followed. My wife uses dialysis equipment. Are we next? Karen tried to regain control. The board acted in good faith. No, I said calmly. You acted in retaliation. I placed printed documents on the table. Federal accommodation requirements. Utility tampering statutes. Civil liability penalties. And finally, a letter from a veterans legal advocacy group requesting formal investigation. The room shifted. Board members who once nodded behind her now avoided eye contact. Because this wasn't about landscaping anymore. This was about federal exposure. One board member cleared his throat. We were told the equipment posed fire risk. It doesn't, I replied. And you never verified that claim. Another spoke up. Did we actually vote to cut power? Karen's silence answered for her. By the end of that meeting, 3 things happened. The HOA rescinded every medical-related fine. They issued a written apology. And Karen was removed pending legal review. But consequences didn't stop there. The utility company fined the HOA for unauthorized infrastructure interference. The federal complaint triggered mediation review. And Pinnacle Properties, the real estate group quietly circling senior homes, suddenly withdrew interest from our neighborhood. Because investigations scare investors. A week later, Karen's house went up for sale. No dramatic ending. No revenge blackout. Just a for sale sign in the yard of someone who thought rules made her untouchable. My grandfather came home from the hospital 3 days after the incident. This time, with a hospital-grade silent backup system installed directly through the utility with full medical exemption status. No one would touch that line again. One evening, as I adjusted his oxygen flow, he looked at me. "You always were stubborn. Runs in the family," I said. He gave a faint smile. "You did good." Across the street, Karen's house sat empty. No flashing lights. No speeches. No applause. Just quiet accountability. Because here's the truth she learned too late. HOA rules might control grass height. But they don't outrank federal law. And they definitely don't outrank a veteran's right to breathe.